Thanks so much for being with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. I'm Joy Lim-Nakron. Okay, I just want to let you know that we are keeping our eyes out on a press conference that is about to begin really at any moment now. And what we're expecting here at any moment is for lawyers for the family of Devonte Dawayne Brown to hold this press conference where they essentially will be calling out the district attorney for Cobb County. So just to recap, let me give you a look at, this is Mr. Brown here. God rest his soul. But this young man was shot and killed by a Cobb County police officer. And lawyers for his family, they want to hold a news conference today, just a short time from now, and call out the Cobb County District Attorney for what they say is presenting evidence to a grand jury before the Georgia Bureau of Investigation had completed its own investigation. And what happened here is a Cobb County police officer shot Devonte Dawayne Brown, age 28, from Austell, in August of 2021. Now, according to investigators, an officer initially pulled him over for driving recklessly. Brown pulled over, but then according to the GBI, quote, refused to comply and sped away. That's what the GBI reported in their preliminary investigation. Now, several Cobb County police officers and sheriff's deputies tried to stop Mr. Brown and at one point tried to box in his car, the GBI said. Officers said that Mr. Brown tried to get away and hit multiple vehicles. One officer had non-life-threatening injuries after being struck by Brown's vehicle, according to GBI's initial report on this. Some video shows from a body cam shows an officer firing several shots toward Brown, and after Brown continued to ram police vehicles that had surrounded his vehicle. And in the video, the officer called for paramedics, saying, quote, the suspect is down with, quote, multiple gunshot wounds, and that he thinks the fire department will have to extricate the driver. GBI later on said that a handgun was found in Mr. Brown's car. The officer was not indicted despite all this, and according to Brown family attorneys, Brown was not a threat at the time of the shooting because he'd been boxed in and because his airbag had been deployed, restricting his ability to, continue fleeing. And they are contending that the Cobb County District Attorney, Flynn Brody, presented evidence to a grand jury prematurely 9 months before the GBI had fully completed its investigation. My colleague Rebecca Schramm, let me show you just back out here live. We are expecting this press conference to begin at any moment. But in the meantime, I want to go to this story put together by my colleague Rebecca Schramm with a bit more background on this case.
Lawyers for the family will hold that news conference here outside the Cobb County District Attorney's office. They say they plan to call him out, saying he took incomplete evidence to the grand jury. Let's take you back to August of 2021. Police were trying to pull over 28-year-old Devonte Dawayne Brown of Austell, who had fled a traffic stop. You can see from the body cam video, they boxed him in at the intersection of Powder Springs and Sandtown Roads in Marietta. He continued to ram police cars, injuring one of the officers. We're not showing the part where another officer opened fire, killing Brown. The GBI later told us detectives found a gun in Brown's car. Attorneys for Brown's family contend that Brown was not a threat at that moment because he'd been boxed in and because his airbag had deployed, essentially trapping him. The officer who pulled the trigger was not indicted, and the Brown family attorneys believe that's because Cobb County District Attorney Flynn Brody presented the evidence to the grand jury 9 months before the GBI had fully completed its investigation. They plan to draw attention to that this morning. We will be here and we'll let you know what else they say. In downtown Marietta, Rebecca Schramm, Atlanta News First.
And our thanks to Rebecca Schramm for that report, and just showing you this live look here as we are waiting for lawyers for the family of Devonte Brown to hold that news conference, as Rebecca mentioned, and really call out the Cobb County DA for what they say is presenting evidence prematurely in the case of Mr. Brown. So, again, that's expected to start. It was scheduled to start at 10 o'clock, but, sometimes things run a little bit behind schedule. As you can see, we have our live camera here up, and we're waiting for that to begin at really any moment now. In the meantime, I do want to let you know, let's show you for a moment inside this courtroom here. This is just a seal of what's happening in the Fulton County courtroom where the Young Thug trial, YSL Rico trial, will resume again today. And let me just show you some video from yesterday of this trial. But so, you know, that's Judge Earl Glanville, and we continue just following the latest in this case. And we want to just let you know, you can watch on our secondary stream, which is our special event stream, gavel-to-gavel coverage of the YSL trial. Just go over to our secondary stream, and you can see the latest on what's happening there. And
are any of these things on here, Matt?
you know, still something that is, so now we would be on day 26 in this historic trial. And again, Jeffrey Williams, aka Young Thug, on trial in this massive RICO case involving himself and 5 other defendants. Prosecutors allege that he and his co-defendants, members of the Young Slime Life gang. Of course, defense attorneys say YSL is just a record label. Williams is facing 8 criminal counts under federal law, which was enacted to fight organized crime. Georgia is one of 33 states that has its own RICO law. So there are a total of 18 jurors sitting for this trial, 12 seated as jurors, 6 alternates. As for the jury makeup, let me show you live inside the courtroom. It looks like we've got some activity there. As for the jury makeup here, it is 10 black women, 2 white women, 3 black men, and 3 white men who are sitting on the panel for this jury. Opening statements started in November of last year. The trial was expected to last at least 6 months, with prosecutors expected to call at least 400 witnesses, but many project that this will last even longer. There have been numerous delays, including for the stabbing of one of the defendants who needed to take some time to heal, but just that is on our special event stream, our secondary stream. Okay, let's go back out live to where the family, the lawyers for the family of Devonte Brown are, sorry, something unexpected on the screen right now, but we are expecting lawyers for the family of Devonte Brown to hold this press conference at any moment now and call out the Cobb County District Attorney. So we are just waiting for that press conference to begin at any moment. Let me bring you back out here live, and let's go ahead and listen in.
How we doing? Anybody need a mic check? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
What about from the ladies? Are we clear?
As you can
Are able to
hear,
me?
they're just, we're just doing some mic checks. They're just doing some mic checks with my colleague Rebecca Schramm. This press conference expected to begin. Brown family attorneys Bernarda Villalona, Chantel Cherry Lassiter, and Crystal Carey expected to speak here. Let's listen.
Crystal Carey of the Law Office of Harry M. Daniels. Alongside me is Chantel Cherry Lassiter of the same firm, and Bernarda Villalona of Villalona Law, PLLC of New York, and we represent the family of Devonte Brown. On August 18th, 2021, Devonte Brown, a young African-American male, was senselessly gunned down by Officer Ian McConnell of the Cobb County Police Department. Devonte Brown was a devoted father of 5. He was also a brother and a beloved son. We're here today because the Cobb County District Attorney prematurely presented evidence to a grand jury on December the 8th, 2022, without having a full report from the GBI. And my co-counsel, Ms. Bernarda, who has over 10 years of experience prosecuting cases as well as presenting evidence to the grand juries, will speak on that issue as to the process being inadequate. But first, I want to speak about the Cobb County Police Department Policy 5, .15 that was in existence on that particular day when Mr. Brown died, and how that particular policy was violated by Officer McConnell. Cobb County Police Department's policy 5.15 is a vehicle pursuit policy. And that policy in particular states that prohibited practices that officers of Cobb County Police Department shouldn't engage in. And one of those prohibited practices is officers will not discharge their weapons at a moving vehicle unless the driver or occupants are using deadly force. Clearly, everybody has seen the video. The video speaks for itself. The video shows that at no time was Mr. Brown a threat to any officers on the scene or the public at large, because he was being boxed in by the officers, and he was also entrapped in his vehicle. So the actions of Ian McConnell was unwarranted, unjustified, and unnecessary. For him to shoot 12 times into a moving vehicle, striking and killing Devonte Brown was just unreasonable. You will hear again from Bernarda about the process, but you'll also hear from Chantel Cherry Lassiter, who was involved in the Andrew Brown case, and she will speak on additional policies that were violated. We strongly believe that Officer McConnell's actions were clearly a violation of Cobb County Police policies and a violation of Mr. Brown's Fourth Amendment constitutional rights. Again, the case presented to a grand jury, and was presented to a grand jury, and we believe the grand jury was not presented the Cobb County's police policies, nor other evidence necessary for the grand jury to give or to come back and reconvene with the possibility of indicting Officer McConnell. At this time, I'll let my co-counsel speak, and then we'll open the floor for a Q&A.
Spell your name right quick.
It's Crystal, Crystal, last name Carey, Carey.
Swear you was up when you started.
Good morning. Chantel, Chantel, last name Cherry, Cherry, hyphen Lassiter, Lassiter. Good morning. I'm attorney Chantel Cherry Lassiter with the Law Office of Harry M. Daniels. And again, as my co-counsel mentioned, the vehicle policy with Cobb County Police Department, they have a vehicle pursuit policy which states pursuable offenses. So one of the pursuable offenses, before you even start a pursuit, you have to have reasonable suspicion based on the totality of circumstances that the driver or the occupants of the vehicle have committed, are attempting to commit, or are committing one of these offenses: murder, voluntary manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, rape, kidnapping. Before you even pursue someone, these are the offenses per their policy that must have taken place or are in the process of being committed. They also have a deadly force policy, 5.20, stating if the officers are not in imminent threat of injury, you are not to use deadly force. In this situation, Mr. Brown was boxed in. His tires were flattened. His airbags had deployed. There were not any threat of him trying to flee at that point. When he was shot, when the car was shot at 12 times, he was not moving. He was not a threat at that time. We will also, again, hear from my colleague, Attorney Villalona, regarding the process of the case being presented to the grand jury. So you will hear from her at this time.
And if you'll spell your name.
Sure. Bernarda Villalona, B as in boy, ERNARDA, last name V as in Victor, ILLALONA. Good morning, everyone. Bernarda Villalona. As I stand here before you, I stand here disappointed. Disappointed. And I'm disappointed at the Cobb County's District Attorney's Office for their failure to uphold their oath, and that oath of seeking justice. Having been a prosecutor for 16 years, having prosecuted numerous homicides, have presented over hundreds of cases to the grand jury, it is clear to me from having reviewed the minutes and the transcripts in this grand jury presentation that it was tainted, that there was one goal in mind by the Cobb County District Attorney's Office, and that was for the case to go no further than it did. There were major deficiencies in that presentation. The purpose of a grand jury presentation, the one that they were seeking, is to introduce the investigation, introduce supposedly objectively what transpired, objectively and without a taint of how they wanted the grand jury presentation to go. One of the major insufficiencies in that grand jury presentation is the timing. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations did not complete their investigation until September 2023. So if the Cobb County District Attorney's Office wanted to give an objective, a fair presentation for these grand jurors to make a complete understanding of what happened, then what was that rush? They presented that case to the grand jury in December of 2022. What happened between December 2022 and the conclusion of the GBI's investigation in September 2023? Because clearly that investigation continued and that grand jury did not hear what was part of that investigation, including the policies that were stated by co-counsel, including to let you know how tainted that investigation presentation was. The assistant district attorney addressed Mr. Devonte Brown throughout that proceeding as the subject. Didn't even make him human. Didn't even give him a name. Presented Mr. Brown's criminal background that has no bearing in a grand jury proceeding because neither of the officers ever said they knew anything of Mr. Brown prior to encountering him on August of 2021. Including mentioning to the grand jury and asking, well, did any of the police officers have contact with Mr. Brown prior to August 18th of 2021? What relevance does that have? Including presented to the grand jury information about a United States case, which is typically not presented to the grand jury, especially when you nitpick what you want to tell them. I'm highly disappointed again in the Cobb County District Attorney's Office because based on my experience, it is clear that they wanted to tank that presentation and they wanted to close it on that very day. And that's why there were no charges in this case and have yet to be no charges in this case. And it's a shame because Devonte Brown deserves better. His family deserves better. His kids deserve to know the truth. And his kids deserve to know that regardless of what happens, that there was a clear and objective and fair presentation made to a group of citizens from Cobb County that listened to the evidence and what they were supposed to listen to and came to a decision. But they've been robbed of that. It is my call, it is our call, and Devonte Brown's call, and the people of Cobb County deserve that a special prosecutor be appointed in this case, and that this case be presented to a grand jury in a fair and objective manner, and with the proper policies and evidence presented to the grand jury to reach a fair decision. We all deserve better. Devonte Brown deserves better. And Cobb County District Attorney's Office needs to do better. Thank you.
Question for you. You said that you felt the case was tainted. How often do district attorneys present cases that are still under investigation? Does it happen?
So it does happen. However, the district attorney's office usually keeps the investigation, the grand jury, open. That's how you keep long-term grand juries. You keep them open because as things happen, you can go back into the grand jury and present additional evidence. Let's not forget, we are in Georgia. And guess what happened? There was a long grand jury presentation having to deal with Donald Trump. So as evidence came in, it was presented. So it is typical, but what's not typical is for you to close down that grand jury investigation and that presentation without you getting the official findings from the GBI, the person and the entity that's responsible to getting down to the fair investigation, supposedly the fair investigation about what happened and gathering the evidence.
So was the pursuit policy presented to the grand jury?
No, it was not,
And why do you think they didn't do that?
because it was tainted from the beginning.
Were you sitting in on this grand jury?
No, but I did read I believe it's a 104-page transcript of the grand jury presentation.
Do you know how long it lasted, the presentation?
One day. And I want to say actually either it was just the afternoon or just the morning, so just a few hours.
So, Cobb Police sent me a statement today that says that they reviewed all of the evidence in its totality from the GBI investigation and the internal police investigation. Do you dispute that?
Absolutely, 100%. It wasn't presented to the grand jury. I read the transcript. So you reviewed that, but you picked and choose what you wanted to present to the same body that is supposed to make the decision as to whether to recommend for you to continue further action here. So the thing is with grand jury presentations, remember that it is one-sided. It is one-sided in the sense that the prosecutor is the one who controls what happens inside of the grand jury. The prosecutor determines what evidence is presented to the grand jury, how they present the evidence to the grand jury, who they call to testify, what law they present to the grand jury, how they explain that law to the grand jurors, and how to answer the questions that are presented by the grand jury.
Talking about the video itself, we've all seen it. I believe it appears only one officer fired shots.
Correct.
Even though there were
Ian
several
McNutt,
around.
yes.
Can you talk about what that means to you, the fact that just one officer fired when there were a lot of officers standing around?
Well, it's evident when you have multiple officers that are within feet of each other and only one officer fires a shot, not a shot, 12 shots, that clearly from the other officer's vantage point that they didn't see the need or the imminent threat of deadly physical force.
If nothing happens, if the DA declines to bring this before a grand jury again, is there a path forward for you all? What will happen at that point?
Absolutely. Our plan is definitely to bring forth file a complaint and get some type of justice probably in the courtroom for the family.
Who would you file that with?
At this time, we haven't made that determination.
Whose call is it to appoint this special prosecutor?
It's usually the Attorney General who makes that decision about appointing a special prosecutor. I mean, it depends from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but that is not something that should bar a presentation to a grand jury. I think it's clear here, based on the bias from the first grand jury presentation, that a special prosecutor needs to come in because Cobb County District Attorney's Office cannot be trusted to present a fair presentation of this case.
So y'all are seeking the Attorney General's office to step in, remove the Cobb DAs from this case and appoint a special prosecutor and then have this represented to a grand jury? Is that correct?
That is our hope, that a special prosecutor is presented, is appointed, and that special prosecutor can take over this investigation that Cobb County closed.
Do you
So
know
the
the
Attorney General would be the one? you guys
Okay, repeat that question.
Have you been in touch with the Attorney General's office?
Ms. Carter's office?
At the current moment, we have not, but we are planning to.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the plan forward.
Yes.
The officer who fired the shots, do you know if he spoke to the grand jury?
No, he did not speak to the grand jury. He did not testify in the grand jury. Only one person testified in the grand jury, and that was a special agent who testified as to what his investigation consisted of.
GBI agent?
A GBI agent, yes.
Can you speak up? We can't.
When was the grand jury closed? What was that?
December 2022. And mind you that these documents, the grand jury transcripts, were not released to us until just a few months ago.
And you mentioned the DA's office bringing up previous criminal history. Does that include convictions? Do you know what that was? And you said something about a federal case as well?
No, so in terms of what the district attorney, the assistant district attorney did is that made mention about Mr. Brown that he had an open case. I believe it had to deal with like failure to support a child or abandonment of a child, something like that to that extent. But again, it had no relevance to the charges or to the presentation, because what matters is what was in Officer McConnell's mind when he decided to fire shot after shot after shot after shot. But what the DA did do is bring up the officer's good history as to clean him up.
Is there, if the Attorney General declines to appoint a special prosecutor, is there a point at which a lawsuit could be filed, a civil suit? How does any of that work, or is that a possibility?
Yes, we will be handling the civil aspect of it. Again, we are not the criminal attorney, so we cannot handle the criminal side of it, but we will be filing a civil complaint with the federal district courts.
You said you were a former prosecutor. Where were you a prosecutor?
I was a prosecutor in New York as well as in Pennsylvania.
As a former prosecutor, would you have ever brought a potential murder case to a grand jury without a complete investigation?
Well, no, I have. However, it depends on what the facts are. Because if you have, for instance, if you have an eyewitness and DNA and fingerprints and you have video, you pretty much have the complete investigation right there. But what makes this case different is that there's a lot of policy that was involved, a lot of policy that had to be looked into. And the policy is what makes the difference in determining these criminal charges. And how do you leave out the brain of the body when presenting a case to a grand jury when you're dealing with a former officer? Well, not an officer, I'm sorry, an officer at the time. We don't know if he's still on the job or not.
Okay, before we get one more additional question, we just want to reiterate that we're trying to get justice for the family, whether it's in court or whether we reach out to the Attorney General to seek for a special prosecutor to bring forth indictment charges on Officer Ian McConnell. But do we have one additional question?
We've been here before. The Vincent Truitt case comes to mind, if y'all are familiar with that one. It was a young man who was shot by the police. The case was presented to a grand jury by the DA's office here. They declined to indict. And I guess the family of Vincent Truitt said that, the DA went in there with the mindset of, we're not going to get this case indicted. Is that what y'all feel happened here?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We absolutely believe that Cobb County District Attorney Office went in with the mindset of not indicting Officer Ian McConnell for his actions towards Devonte Brown.
And real quick, the officer that fired the shots was not in the direct path of the vehicle, correct?
That's correct. He was not in the direct path of the vehicle.
And the officers that were in the direct path did not fire their weapons?
No officers were in a direct path of the vehicle.
And no other officers fired their weapon.
Do we know why he was stopped in the first place?
We do know that it was not one of these pursuable
For a
situations.
typical traffic violation.
But this was the end of a pursuit that happened, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
All right. Thank you guys for coming. We appreciate you guys. And when we file the lawsuit, we'll be back. Thank you.
It will be on the federal level.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Weird request. Could I get y'all to stand on the stairs and just grab a quick photo? If that's okay.
All right, who's
So,
my hands are
I can imagine. Thank you so much.
in my.
All right, so you have been listening live to attorneys for the family of Devonte Brown calling out the Cobb County DA, essentially insinuating that they rushed to present evidence prematurely to a grand jury and essentially kind of approach the case as with sort of a little bit of confirmation bias is what many experts would describe it as regarding indicting the officer involved here in the death of Devonte Brown, who was 28 years old from Austell. And, we're going to continue to follow all the breaking developments here on Atlanta News First Plus. Also want to encourage you to download our free and mobile news app so you can get updates sent right to your phone. But again, showing you a look here at Devonte Dawayne Brown. And again, his family's attorneys really accusing Cobb County District Attorney of presenting evidence prematurely to a grand jury. And then what they say is that resulted in the officer not being indicted. We're going to continue to follow the latest here on Atlanta News First and Atlanta News First Plus.